Hi, everyone. I'm here today with my dear friend, PollyAnna Brown. I feel like I've known her forever, but it's only been about a year now we've known each other.
That's it?
Like, it's been a year, I think. It's been
Wow.
a year. We met because our mutual friend Rocky introduced us, and with a bunch of us got together, and we have this cool sisterhood of writers and people in business, and it was just amazing. And PollyAnna is like fairy godmother for storytelling and PR, and she's just incredible. So she does so many things. So I'll let her introduce all the magical things she does for people.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. Sarah, thank you so much for having me. And so a little bit about what I do is my business started with storytelling, and I was really teaching entrepreneurs and business owners how to share their story, especially online, because so many people, they just didn't know. That's the best way I can say it. They didn't know what to do. And so that's how my business started, and it developed into a whole mode of marketing. And so I am actually the founder of Storytelling Marketing, and that has evolved into copywriting and as well as PR. So PR is a really big focus now. That's kind of our sweet spot. And so that's where we really get to come alive and bring the storytelling way deeper into businesses and people who are looking to get their message out into the world. And so that's just a little snippet of what we do.
That's amazing. Can you explain what PR is to people who might not be familiar with what
Totally.
in PR?
Absolutely. So PR is formally referred to as public relations. And it's so funny because that term is like gone out of vogue, I feel
Really?
like.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And it might just be, the circles that I run in. It's typically referred to now as publicity. And so publicity is, think of business, like, here's your marketing arm, here's your monetizing arm. Publicity is a very important part of the marketing arm. And so what publicity does is it gets your name out. It shares your story. It shares your message. And it really positions you in a strategic way. For most of our clients, we focus on monetizing their PR so that when they are getting publicity, then what happens is they're capturing those leads from the traffic and they put them on their email list. They can sell them into programs. If they have a book, they can sell their book. There's lots of ways to do that. So what you're doing is creating this network of amazing outlets where not only do people get to know who you are, but they get to dive deeper into your work or what you do, whatever that may be. So it creates this almost community type aspect. And the cool thing about publicity is you don't have to have a social media following for it to work. That's like the coolest thing. So if you're brand new and you want to like really move forward in a fast way, publicity is actually faster than social media now because of all the clamping down on social media. I know, shocker, right?
It's actually really surprising. I hadn't heard this before.
Yeah. And this actually came from one of my mentors. She had started a business. She only had $200 in her bank account. And she was like, okay, I can spend a few months trying to get everything going on social media and try and make this $200 last when I have, a child and a husband and, all that stuff. Or I can start leveraging publicity now and really move forward. And so what she did is she worked on her publicity, got featured in a few places that were key places for her audience, and started getting paid speaking gigs right away.
Whoa. So like when you say publicity, do you mean magazine articles? Do you mean podcasts? What does that encompass exactly?
Yes. So podcasts are huge. I love podcasts. Podcasts are not the most monetizing right away. However, for authors, it's a little bit different because when you go on a podcast, you're talking about your book and your story and how you created this book. And there's not a big barrier to entry with a book, right? People are usually like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Let me go spend $15, $25 on a book. Mm-hmm. It's not as where a lot of people that I work with, their products are in the thousands and thousands of dollars. So if you're in the thousands and thousands of dollars, that buying cycle's longer, right? Whereas a book, it's like, that sounds like a cool as shit book. I'm going to go hop on Amazon right now and get it while I'm listening to the podcast. So it's different. And the cool thing about podcasts is the podcast lives on, right? Mm-hmm. So it lives on the website. It lives on the platform. And so when you have a podcast host put your link to your book in their show notes, you have people coming and hitting that over and over and over again. So it's really powerful. So I love podcasts, especially for authors, because of that. It's so easy to be like, especially if the host is excited about your book. Oh, honey, you're good. So that's a really great way to move forward. But we're also talking magazine articles, online publications. Online publications are also very good for the same reason. They live on. You can drive your own traffic to them. I don't know if you guys know this. Number one hack for PR, you can run your own ad traffic to the outlets. And
interesting.
So then think about it this way. Like, you are running your targeted traffic that would love your book, to a third party that they automatically trust because it's third party, about your episode or your article or whatever it is about your book, that the book is recommended. So
that's smart.
It's smart, right? So it's a great way to really build an audience. And so it's absolutely phenomenal. So I love online publications and podcasts because the links are so readily available. Your people don't have to think, right? Like, your readers don't have to think about, oh, I got to go remember this website, or I have to go remember to look up this book, or whatever it is. They can click a link and get it. And that's so helpful. So that's one way. And then, of course, you have your other things like public speaking. That's publicity. All those different things. Of course, TV, of course, publicity. But I think that kind of goes without saying. So all of these things, and the way that I approach publicity is really from a reputation management perspective, right? So how is what I'm doing in the world showing up to my readers? How is that showing up to my audience? And is this something that's going to bring them closer to me or push them further away? And let me just tell you right now, if you're doing something that keeps someone right here, you're pushing them away. If you're not bringing them closer into you and into your brand and into what you're doing, then it's not working to your benefit. So what publicity does is it powerfully and profitably positions you to really move forward with your audience and bring them closer, develop that bond, and have a specific, clear reputation going throughout the online space, so that what they're reading about you, what they're hearing about you, is consistent across the board, if that makes sense.
That's perfect. Yes, and I think that's very important with books, with like the star rating and just reviews and things like that. It's very important for authors.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. If you are out marketing your book, especially using publicity, then even if someone didn't like your book, but they like you, they're going to read your next one and give you the benefit of the doubt. Give them the opportunity to win them over. Mm-hmm. That's part of it. And if your type of book, like let's say your genre, I love fantasy, but I'm not much of a contemporary person.
Interesting.
Right? So if I know that the writing is good, and I really like the author, but it's just not my cup of tea to read, right? I'm going to recommend that author to other people. I'm going to connect them with who they need to be connected with, because it may not be me, but I could be the difference between hitting the New York Times bestseller list and not, based on the introductions that I make. So it's not always that everyone needs to give your book a 4 or 5 star review. That's not necessarily the case. But when you put publicity first and you're putting those relationships first, what you're doing is you're creating a reputation that allows people to recommend you to the appropriate people that you need to get in front of. And it creates a network and a segue and a roadmap for you to push your career forward.
That's amazing. Do you have any tips for writers on how they can start building up their publicity, getting on these podcasts, getting their name in front of people?
Yes. First, okay, I love y'all. Do not stop watching this based on this statement, but no one gives a shit about your book.
No, that's true. I will agree with that.
Yeah. And I know that that's hard to hear. And I say it like with total love and total respect. Believe me, I'm all about the book.
PollyAnna, she reads as much as I do, and I read a lot.
Yes. We're actually getting a new shelf in here because I just got a shit ton of books.
I have that problem too. I hear you.
Yeah. So even though I give a shit about your book, no one gives a shit about your book, it sounds mean, but here's what I mean. A book is nothing without a story, and a good story, not just an average story. It needs to be good. And every author has a story to tell. That's why we write in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. But the author, based on, and you and I talked about this before, in previous years and millennia, maybe not millennia, but centuries for sure. In previous centuries, authors were very anonymous, mm-hmm. right? They didn't have a lot of interaction. The book had to stand on its own. And it's not like that anymore. A book that stands on its own is the book no one ever reads.
It's true.
But you can have a shitty ass book. Now, I'm not saying get a shitty ass book, but you can have a shitty ass book. And if you loud about it, and if you got a good story for yourself behind it, that book is going to get read. So it's really important to realize that your story matters. Your story as the author. Mm-hmm. And when you can see, because y'all storytellers, you know what I'm talking about. You know how to identify a story. Mm-hmm. You know when something's good. You know when something's entertaining. So really look at who you are. Look at your life. Look at, what led you to write this? What led you to write this book that is so profound that people need to read it? Whether it's super entertaining, whether it's a thrill ride, or it just gets you in those ushy-gushy places, mm-hmm. or all those other things. Whatever that is, what led you there? And really focus on those stories. One of my author friends who I absolutely love has a really compelling story behind writing her first book. And one of the things that really got me was she didn't have a lot of support. And one of her family members actually took the manuscript that she was writing and threw it in the trash. And,
I know.
Yeah.
It's shocking.
And that story is so profound because she picked it up out of the trash and went to work.
I know. She's an incredible human being.
Right? Totally incredible human being. And that story is so compelling because what author and what reader has not felt abandoned, mm-hmm. misunderstood, or alone? Those are common themes that readers have, that writers also have, because hello, we're writers. So it's important to realize what themes go throughout your life that you can really share that are compelling. And it can be as simple as, I was bullied in high school. Mm-hmm. I was bullied in high school, and this is how it led me down this road. But that story is what sets you apart. It's what makes you human, and it's what makes your story interesting, because when people read your words, they always wonder what's behind them.
It's true. I wonder that all the time with authors. Like John Green is another example of Turtles All the Way Down. He suffers from OCD. So he's like, I'm going to write a book where the main character has OCD, and it's not going to be romanticized. It's not going to give her some superpowers. It can be debilitating. It's a real life depiction where you feel like you're in that person's head. And that's an example of how his story helped him with his book and makes it more compelling in the book.
Absolutely. And well, John Green does not need like a lot of intros for a lot of people.
No, he doesn't.
I will say John Green does this thing where he disappears for long periods of time.
He does. It's crazy.
And the thing about that is you can do that if you know how to make yourself relevant on a dime. And he did that by not only writing a story about OCD, but being honest about the story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So he made himself relevant again. And that was the big draw for the book. When I was watching booktubers all over the place cover that and review that, what drew them to it is it was an own voices novel.
Mm-hmm.
So if you happen to have something in common with one of your characters, talk about that. Talk about where that inspiration came from. Another one that was really interesting was Before She Ignites. I believe it's by Jodi Meadows. I could be wrong.
I've never read this book. Now I want to read it.
It's really interesting. So Before She Ignites is about this. It's a beautiful protagonist. And first of all, she's Black, which is amazing because we don't get a lot of that.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
Right? And oh my gosh, it was so amazing. And it was accurate, which I love. I'm just for you guys watching who don't know, I'm in a mixed marriage. So my extended family is almost all Black and I love them. They're so great. And I know the little differences and nuances that they do differently, such as coconut oil and cocoa butter on their skin to really take care of and nourish it. And things like that were in the novel. And it went to creating trust between me and the author, which was really powerful. But the other thing that really got me was the main character also had anxiety and panic attacks. And I had those. I know what they're like. And so it was really compelling to me that I could read about this person that I felt so connected to just by reading about them. So when, let's say hypothetically, you're an author who does not have anything in common with your character. Talk about how you related to them. Why did they come up for you? What were they inspired by? How did you make sure that you were connecting with them appropriately? All of these things matter.
I will do a side thing. I have to do a public service announcement. It's just compelling. There's two things. First of all, own voices is when someone of that ethnicity or that religious background or with a disability writes about their disability, so on and so forth. So you're writing about what you are is what an own voices book is. And PSA, if you do write someone who is not yourself, get sensitivity readers. Please get sensitivity readers, which is so someone of that ethnicity, that religious background, who has that disability, reads your book and tells you, hey, this is not accurate. This is not true to me. This is offensive. If you're doing it, research it, give it to multiple people because not everyone's experience is the same. Just, I have to give a PSA because it's something that needs to be done for writers is make sure it's accurate and it's not offensive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so vital because I'll tell you from a PR perspective, if you go into a book and something is not accurate, you have just shot a big portion of your career in the foot because the people who were willing to have you on their show, their magazine, their booktube, whatever it was, now they're not going to again because they can't trust you.
And they won't read your book. People never read your books again if it's offensive to them or inaccurate.
And let's define offensive because I think that's important. There are little things like you're never going to make everyone happy.
True.
However, you have to make sure that the offensive level is very clear, that it's not personally offensive to a group of people. It's offensive to one person who read it. You know what I mean? If you have, for example, a group of people who tell you, no, this is offensive and inaccurate, and that's not the case. For example, let's take my best friend is Muslim. And if I were to write a story about a Muslim family who moved to America, and the daughter wanted to be more Americanized, and I wrote a story about how her father and brothers killed her over it, that's going to be mostly inaccurate, right? That is a completely radical thing that is not true to the culture. And if I were to portray that as that's how that culture is, I would be doing a huge disservice to a wide group of people. And my books are not going to get read again. It's just
true.
It's not going to happen. So it's really important to understand the level of responsibility that you have as an author to show up with dignity and respect in reference to the characters you're writing. So definitely do your research, definitely have your sensitivity readers, and understand that you can make waves. That's cool, but you have to be strategic about it, and you have to know what you're doing. You can't unintentionally making waves makes no goddamn sense. So, and the reason it doesn't make any sense is because if you want your books to be out in the world in whatever capacity, whether that's entertaining, making a difference, making an impact, changing the way a conversation is going, if you want that to happen, you have to understand how your book affects people, which means you have to understand how story affects people. Story is everything. When it comes to publicity, story is everything. If you don't understand your story, if you don't understand the stories behind your characters, if you don't understand the stories behind the people you're representing in your stories, then you don't have anything to show up with. You're not done. And that's not a done book either. So it's really important to be so clear on your story, the story behind your people, the story that really encapsulates the whole experience for you as a writer, you as a human being, and the book that you've written, to move forward and really allow that to connect with the people who want to read it.
That's true. How do you connect with those people? So let's say I'm writing for teen girls in general or something like that. How would I know? Or let's say I'm a romance writer for a certain demographic. Like, how do I know where my audience is? Do you have any tips for people on how to find their audience and know where they're hanging out?
Yes. So first you got to do target market research. Now, this term can be scary. Don't get scared. It's okay. So it's really important to really care about your people enough to find ideal readers. You can do this through book clubs. Libraries are a great resource for this because librarians know who their readers are.
My best friends are librarians, so they'll appreciate that. They'll appreciate the shout out.
They know what section you're going to. They know what you're reading. Like, you're not fooling anybody. There's a record of that. So it's very interesting because you'll get a lot of insight from these people. What magazines do they read? Because if they are reading, like, let's say you're a romance reader, you probably read a lot of Cosmo. Probably
That's
do.
true. I never actually made that connection, which makes me feel foolish. But yes, they probably are reading a lot of Cosmo.
Right? So if you're looking for a book review, you want to get into Cosmo in some way. Now, I will, again, reiterate, story is everything here because I love y'all. No one gives a shit about your book. So
that should be like your slogan. You should start selling like coffee mugs with that and t-shirts and hoodies.
And it's funny because I love books, so I give a shit. But when it comes to publicity, people don't give a shit about the book. They care about the story. And there's a big difference between the two. So if you want to get into Cosmo, you want to look at what is your book about? So let's just say romance. What is special about the book? What's different about the book? And let's just say it's standard romance novel. There's nothing special, nothing, anything. Well, then what's special about you? What's special about your story? So I'm going to go with a harsh example because I think it's important. If you are a romance writer and when you were younger, you underwent some serious sexual assault. That's a story. That's a story, because what kind of healing do you have to do as a person to then write about romance? Right? Like, that's powerful. And especially to make it such an integral part of your life when you're writing more than one novel. So being able to talk about, who you are as an individual and how that affects your writing, there's a story there, especially when you're talking about with the Me Too movement lately, right? That is newsworthy. That's a story. So it's really looking at what makes you different. Where is this different stories you have? Everyone has more than one story. And there's always at least 5 ways to spin it. At least.
That's interesting. So what happens if people are thinking, I haven't experienced, thank God, have not experienced anything major in my life. I haven't done anything like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. How can people still find their story even if they've lived a relatively uneventful life?
Have you ever had pain? Like emotional pain?
Yes.
Have you ever felt alone?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever felt odd or misunderstood?
Definitely, yes.
Have you ever been elated?
Yes.
Have you ever felt passionate and sexy?
Mm-hmm.
You got stories.
Yeah, it's true.
The stories aren't in the events. The stories are in the emotion and expression of the event.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people connect to. They don't, if I climbed a mountain today, no one is going to go, damn, I want to climb a mountain. No, they are going to be interested in the prep work that I did. They're going to be interested in the freezing temperatures that I endured. And what did I think about when I was climbing that mountain that kept me going? Why did I do it? What led me there? And on top of that, what made me do something crazy like climb a mountain? Why? For all of you watching, I'm not athletic at all. So that's why it'd be like, why? But
I'll be done after 5 feet. I'm out. Bye, guys.
Yeah. So it's never in the event itself. It is always in the expression and experience of the event that people connect. That's where the story is. So you have to connect on an emotional level with people. So let's say, have you ever had someone be mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's say, okay, let's take this. Being bullied is something that happens to everyone in some capacity, right? Whether it's someone called you a name and that's where it ended and you only had that happen once in your life, which, I don't know how you got through that. Like that's kind of cool, but everyone's had someone say something mean to them at some point, right? And especially tends to happen from people you love.
It's true.
And the reason why is because relationships aren't perfect. And no matter what relationship you're in, if you love that person, at some point you're going to say something that hurts their feelings, not because you meant to, but because that's just part of what happens. And in relationships, and I have a point to this, but in relationships, when you hurt each other, what happens is you have the ability to connect and grow more. It's part of why it happens. So if you have any relationships in your life ever, which you probably have parents, and if you don't, you probably have siblings, and if you don't, you probably have had friends, and if you don't, you've probably had someone in your life who inserted themselves in some way that you had some kind of relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't had those things, you probably had a lot of sadness and a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. And not having those things is a story in and of itself. So a lot of times when we look at where's my story, what we're actually looking for is where's my trauma. And
sorry about the dog, guys. This is live. This is we're recording. Life is messy. There you
Life
go.
is messy.
I could write a story about my embarrassment of recording with my dog barking in the background.
It totally happens. It totally happens. No worries. So when we're looking for where's my story, we tend to look for where's my trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a story. A traumatic event is not a story. The expression of the traumatic event is a story, but so is the expression of bliss. So is the expression of, I'm bored, what am I going to do today, right? Did anyone see Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
I love that movie. That's my favorite John Hughes film, and I love me some John Hughes in a very intense way.
That entire movie was about, I'm bored and don't want to go to school.
Actually, that's true, and it's a great story. I love it. It's so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some real shit that goes down in that show.
And with the premise, right, you're like, where's the story in that? There was one, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's one of the classics now at this point, which is weird. Makes me feel old. But looking at where have I experienced emotion and expression is going to be where you find your stories. So that's really the key. Stop looking for trauma and really look for all different forms of emotion and expression, because there are stories in happiness too. It's not just pain.
There are. Like people's weddings, people can tell probably a billion stories around that with like the silly things, the humor you could find, the triumph.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Blaine O'Connor once said, if you survived your childhood, you have stories to tell.
Yes, absolutely. And if you didn't, you have stories to tell, because but yeah, everyone has stories. Everybody. It does not, you are not required to have gone to hell and back to have a story. You are living and breathing, and there's at least one story in there. At least. And I guarantee you, I can find at least 10.
You could, because you're magic.
Thank you. So it's really important to not disregard your own story, because it might not at first glance be as entertaining as you wish it was, or thought it could be, or thought it should be.
That's amazing. Is there anything else you want to share with these writers? Any other PR ideas you might, or hacks you might want to share, or anything about storytelling you'd like to expand on?
I will tell you this. It is so important. It is so vital. Do not wait until your book is about to hit shelves to start this.
No, so true. No. So true. Oh my gosh. If I had $1 for every person I encountered where they're like, I'm going to just do this, like, that when I release it. And if you want to work with the PR person, like, I'm sure you're like this, PollyAnna, but the other people I know, you need to give them at least 3 to 6 months notice.
At least.
At least.
Before you
start working with them.
I won't work with people if they're like, oh, we're ready to launch. I'm like, okay, no. And the reason why is PR takes a while to get traction. Mm-hmm. It just does. You're building relationships. And if you have not already built an on-demand presence, I'm not going to get you one overnight. That's not going to work. So it has to be strategic. It has to be done smart. And there's this thing in the industry I don't like. This is where, and y'all keep watching, don't turn this off, because I promise it'll make sense full circle. This is one thing I love about the traditional publishing industry versus the self-publishing industry. Because in self-publishing, there is a push to get out books as fast as you can.
Truth. It's so true. People come to me and are like, I want my book done in a month. I'm like, I can't give you even good edits in a month. Like, and if you want a good cover, people have wait lists. Like, mine's usually 3 months in advance. Like, no. It takes time.
It does. And if you're self-publishing specifically, you need to give yourself room to do the marketing, to do the PR, to do all of the other things that are involved, to collaborate and coordinate. You're looking at least a year. Mm-hmm. At least.
Mm-hmm. Like, as soon as you get the idea, start planning, basically.
Yes. Your marketing for the book should be figured out before you write it.
Yeah, I agree with that statement.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. If you don't know where the hell that book is going to go, guaranteed, as soon as you're done writing it, you're going to be like, my book is done, and you're going to want to send it out. Where are you going to send it? Where's it gonna go? Nowhere. That's where. So instead of that, you have to know where your people are finding their reading news. You have to know creatively, how are you going to market this? And there are so many things in the industry that are just no. There's a lot of collaborations that don't work because they're not set up with business sense. They are set up with creative sense. And I'm all for some creativity, but you have to have some strategy in there, honey. That's just part of it. So you have to know what you're doing with your book before you write it so that you know where it's going to fit in the market so that you can start getting that ahead of time, because most magazines book out 6 months, a year in advance.
It's true. Mm-hmm. People are planning the Christmas issue like in the summertime.
Yes. And it's kind of like, I used to watch America's Next Top Model all the time.
Oh, I still do. It's coming out today, I think.
There's a new one?
Yeah, they have it with well, I think it's gosh, what's her name? Rita Ora or something like that. And the girl who's I can't know, plus size model who's amazing.
I'm gonna have to watch it.
Or something. I think her name is Graham or something.
Okay.
Yeah. Watch it. It's a different vibe. They're considering now social media presence and like how much the internet is a role if you want your career to blow up, which is really tangentially related. Like even with modeling, they're like, you better have a good social media presence and a good reputation and good PR or you'll lose gigs nowadays. Yes. You have to have a following to get gigs now with modeling.
And that's the same thing for any author. Any author needs a good following. But I was going somewhere with that. Okay.
A top model. Sorry, I just got excited.
No, it's totally okay. But when it comes to knowing where it fits, that's what it was. Tyra Banks used to say on America's Next Top Model, you're shooting the summer shoots, like the bathing suit shoots, in the winter when it's cold, and then you're shooting the winter ads in the summer months when it's hot as hell. So think about that. If a magazine is shooting the photography on opposite schedules, what do you think they're doing for the content that needs edited multiple times over, that people need time to put together? You're looking at more than that. So it's really important to realize that they're not on your timeline. You're on theirs. And you have to know your place in that. Now, you're bringing quality to the table. You're bringing really good stuff. So it's not that you have to all hail the media, but you do have to understand how it works so that you can show up really well. Start developing relationships with reviewers. Like, don't just immediately go, here's my book, I know you like this genre.
So how would you build a relationship with a reviewer? What suggestions would you have for that?
Here's what I would do. I would look at their latest review in something along the lines of what you do, and I would send them an email or a social media thing. A lot of times I use Facebook Messenger, and I would tell them, I just read this, and this part of your review really spoke to me. This really meant a lot to me. I thought you did a really good job here. Praise them, and pay attention to what they're doing in their career. So for example, if maybe it's not a reviewer, maybe it's a journalist that you want to write a story about you. If they just won an award, congratulate them. Mm-hmm. If they won an award in the past, congratulate them. It can be as simple as, I started reading this article and I wanted to learn more about you, and what you write. And I found this, and I just wanted to say, congratulations. I really like your work. And this really spoke to me. And then keep following up like that. Follow up 3 times before you ask for anything. Really develop that relationship and share their stuff. Share it. Because if you're looking to be posted there, don't you want your readers to follow their writing? I'm just saying. So it's always good to be the first to give value in a relationship. Mm-hmm. No matter what that relationship is. You show up and give value. For example, for all of you guys watching, Sarah had invited me to come on for the interview, but we spent a good half hour where I was just helping her before hopping on
It
here.
it was amazing.
And that's how I run my relationships, right? I give value first before I ask for anything. Like, that's how it's supposed to go. You know, like, hey, because let me tell you what this means. It's all subconscious. It's all subtext. And I know y'all writers know what subtext is. So for a lot of other people, I have to explain it. But for you guys know what it is. So there's so much subtext and subconscious stuff going on when we engage in relationships, that when you give something to someone or you help them in some way, before you ask for anything, what that tells that person is, I'm there for you. And I'm genuinely there for you. And you have to mean it with sincerity, right? Like, you can't be someone who's like, I just want some shitta reviews on my book and I don't care about these people. You have to care about them. Because if you don't care about them, you probably don't care about your readers, in which case you probably didn't do a good job on your book. I'm just saying. So if you didn't do a good job on your book, it's not going to go very far anyway. But these are the people who are happy to make your career if you show them that you are a genuine person and genuinely interested in developing a relationship that is not self-centered. And that's really the key. People want to feel valued. It's not even that they're looking for you to help them. It really isn't. It's, I want to be seen. I want to be heard. I want to be understood. I want a real connection. That's all you need. That's it. So do not wait to get started on developing those relationships. Start today. Now, you can do them cold. You can, but I will tell you, book reviews are 10 times harder than getting an article or a podcast.
It's true.
Because they are booked out.
It's true. No, they say like months. Like, I've read reviewers' guides because it helps some of my clients. They're booked like even 8, 9 months, a year.
I tell people, you want to start a year before it's out. So get on their calendar, get on their list, and make sure you're doing whatever you need to do to have that book in their hands by the time it's on their calendar.
It's true.
So it's essentially what it is. And I know that this is a little touchy. As an author, you run a business. That's what it is.
True.
It's a business. And it's your life's work. So the industry has really changed where you are responsible for your marketing. You're responsible for your PR. You're responsible for the decisions that go into sharing your book with the world. And because of that, it's really important to show up for your own book. So if you want it to go out to as many people as possible, you have to do the PR relationship work or hire someone to do it for you. Same thing with the marketing. You have to be willing to show up. And you can hire some of that out, but you still have to show up. Like you do. It's a non-negotiable. Same thing with social media. You have to be present. You don't have to be on 10 million platforms, but you have to be on at least one where you show up solid. And you have to share who you are. Gone are the days where we are these anonymous people that just put out these magical contraptions that people read. It's not like that anymore. And it's a good thing. It's a very, very good thing, because now you have control over how your relationship with your readers progresses and how your career progresses, because you are in control of this business that you're running. So if you love writing, you need to fall in love with these other aspects too, because that's the only way your writing is truly seen. So I encourage you to take it seriously and to make it a priority. Take it out of anything that could be hobbyist. Take it out of anything that could be, I'm going to do this and see where it goes. Really commit to it. If you're going to write a book, which is not easy, it's not easy, then really commit to the whole process and the business side of what it is that you're doing, because writing a book is a business. So
Thanks for that truth bomb.
you are welcome. That's what I would say.
Is there a way people can hire you or find you? Do you have it? Like, where can we all click your beautiful links?
I would say the best place to get me right now is Facebook. We're doing website facelift, so that's not going to be ready for a hot second. But I would love to connect with y'all on Facebook. I am, let's see, I'm trying to remember like what my personal one is, because
I'll put it in the links. I'll just put
the links perfect
in the post below or whatever around me, or
however. Look, somewhere around here, there's going to be links. But that's a great way to get a hold of me. You guys can just message me directly on Facebook. It's probably the best place to get me. And if y'all want to reach out via email, that's cool too. PollyAnna@PollyAnnaBrown.com, and I will help you out.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This was magical. I really appreciate everything, PollyAnna. This was so valuable.
Oh, I'm so glad. Anytime that you want some help, you just give me a shout and I will be here for you.
Okay, bye. Thanks so much.
Thank you.